Hello and welcome back to the channel once again. My name is Andy and today we're back with another race roundup from the weekend's proceedings at the Italian Grand Prix. It was round 13, if my sums are correct, of the Formula 1 World Championship, and what a race it was, to the point that I have 2.5 pages worth of notes to go through. So let's get straight down to the point and go through the weekend's proceedings and the race itself so that we can look back at what went on at Monza this weekend. First up, the build-up, and a couple of the main points in the build-up. We knew of a few parts, so Daniel Ricciardo was taking engine penalties. We kind of expected that. Red Bull looking towards Singapore in a couple of weeks' time, where they expect to be a bit more stronger. So Ricciardo taking the penalties. Renault bringing a C-spec engine. We'll come on to that in a moment. Alonso, we know, is leaving at the end of the season. He has now got a test in a 2018 spec Indy car this coming week at Barber Motorsport Park in Alabama, in conjunction with Andretti Motorsports, who he ran the Indy 500 with last year. So that has really got people believing even more that he is definitely going to Indy cars for next season as he chases that fabled Triple Crown. He only needs the 500 now, of course, to complete the set. Still some issues over the Force India prize money now that they are a new entity, as being called technically Racing Point Force India for the meantime, with all the buyout and changes that happen. So there's still some talk over that, and we will see. But the main bit I'm going to touch on is in regards to Ferrari and Charles Leclerc and Kimi Raikkonen. Now, despite the form that Raikkonen has put in recently, the talk is that Charles Leclerc will be in that seat next season. And as much as earlier on in the season I really wanted that to happen, I'm now starting to think maybe a year too soon for it. But the rumour is that the former Ferrari president, Sergio Marchionne, who sadly passed away, as you'll remember, around about the time of the German Grand Prix, just after that, had agreed and signed a deal with the Monaco driver. Before, I think it was around about the Austrian Grand Prix or something. And now the new CEO at Ferrari, Luis Chieri Camilleri, has came in. And although he's I think he's even a friend of Kimi Raikkonen, they kind of want to adhere to the what Marciano had agreed to do. Also, a couple of other side effects to it, if it is true, is that Leclerc is managed by Nicolas Todt, who is the son of Jean Todt, who is obviously the former Ferrari boss and current president of the FIA, so someone you don't want to be pissing off, obviously. So it could be that this weekend might have been Raikkonen's last Italian Grand Prix, but again, nothing's official yet. It's all rumour and hearsay. So it's going to be an interesting one for sure. Now, obviously, by the time of recording this, more news has come out in terms of the driver market. I will cover that off at the end of the video, so I'll run through it basically in chronological order. Moving on to the actual practice sessions. First practice on Friday was pouring with rain, more sideways than it does in my shower during the morning, and it was Sergio Perez that topped the timesheets for Force India. All the drivers did get out. It did dry up towards the end. Mercedes done most of their running towards the start, but Perez topped the timesheets, but it was completely ineffective running because of the weather. FP2 was dry, but very early doors, a massive crash for the Sauber of Marcus Ericsson. Coming down towards turn 1, the DRS did not reattach at the end of the straight under braking, pitched the car to the left into the barriers nose first. The grass being wet dug in, and it flipped and flipped and flipped all the way down. The car held up really well, obviously ripped the wheels off it, of course, but it held up well. The Swede was totally fine, no problems at all, but that red flagged the session for a while they repaired the barrier and cleaned up the mess. While after it was, though, cleaned up, Vettel topped the session as well as he did in FP3, but in FP3 Hamilton did manage to get within under a tenth of the Ferrari driver as Mercedes started to try and fight back to the Ferraris on their home turf. And then we moved into qualifying itself, and there was a threat of rain in the air most of the weekend. Even on race day there was as well. Q1, Van Dorn out again for the 7th qualifying one in a row. Not good for him, as we'll come into at the end. Both the Salbas dropped out, but I'll go on to that again as to part of the reason why when I round up the race at the end. Sergio Perez went out in Q1 by 1/1000th of a second from Romain Grosjean. The Frenchman very lucky not to go out in Q1, but it was Van Dorn, the Salbas, Perez, and I think it was Hartley as well, if I remember correctly, who all went out in Q1. Q2, Hulkenberg and Ricciardo dropped out, but they both had engine penalties. Hulkenberg took penalties as well. Of course, he had a 10th-place grid penalty regardless after causing the massive collision at the Belgium Grand Prix last weekend. And Sorokin made it P12 and Stroll made it into Q3. The Williams having a nice weekend here. Very well required for the team, so that was good for them. That was good to see that happening. But then when we moved into Q3 itself, fight between the two Ferraris and Hamilton for pole. Hamilton took the pole position first over the line, then Vettel pipped him, and then over the line to the biggest cheer I've heard for a while, Kimi Räikkönen at 38 years of age, 39 in October, the oldest pole sitter since Nigel Mansell at the age of 41, I believe it was. He was 40 or 41, but Kimi Räikkönen on pole position, and it was the fastest lap in F1 history. A 1 minute 19.1 doesn't sound like much, obviously, because tracks vary, but speed was a 163 or something mile an hour lap, but it beat Montoya's lap that he did in 2004 by Juan Pablo Montoya. So it was Raikkonen from Vettel, Hamilton and Bottas, with Max Verstappen in 5th place. And we came on to the race itself, and the race down towards turn 1 and that tricky first chicane. But before we even got there, Brendan Hartley was out the race. Pincer movement on the way down. Van Dorn on the left clipped his front wing slightly. Ericsson on the right clipped the front wheel, broke the suspension, and the New Zealander didn't even make turn 1 and was off at the side of the road. Another horrible race for him. Not what he wanted at all. Into turn 1 though, Raikkonen maintained the lead. Vettel managed to hold on to second, but Hamilton got a heck of a slingshot out of turn 2, through the Curva Grande and up to the second chicane. Went along the outside into the second chicane, was slightly ahead of Vettel, and Vettel clunked the inside side pod of the Mercedes, and the Ferrari went round. You can obviously see the picture on the screen. That's him lighting the tyres up to spin back round, damaged the front wing, dropped right to the back of the field. Hamilton managed to continue on. Obviously, as usual, sometimes depending on your bias, depends on what you feel, but for me, it was a racing incident. Hamilton left him space. There wasn't much more space to the right hand side of Hamilton that he could have given him without going off the track. Vettel did seem to understeer a little bit as well. I don't think there was much more that could have been done other than Vettel either letting Hamilton have the place and just dropping into third and attacking him down towards Ascari, or to either Hamilton going off the track and then obviously yielding completely, which obviously a racing driver's not going to want to do. But a lot of people say it was all Hamilton's fault. I don't think it was, but I don't blame Vettel either. It was two drivers fighting over a one piece of tarmac, and unfortunately it caused Vettel to spin. kind of dampened part of the race with having the top 3, 4, 5 cars fighting over a piece of tarmac. But again, that is racing sometimes, and I think the stewards got that right. And you need to bear in mind, before anyone jumps in the comments below and starts giving me grief, I am not a Hamilton fan. I respect his driving just like I do Vettel, but I am not a fan of any particular driver. I am a fan of the sport, and that is what I think. I think the stewards got that one spot on. Obviously Vettel had wing damage, as I say, but the safety car saved him because of Hartley at the side of the road. So Vettel managed to get back to the pits, put the soft tyres on. That was his only set of soft tyres, so he'd never ran the car in softs all weekend. And it was just, I didn't even realise that until they said it, so really, really crazy. Hartley was pinched to say, and also in the pits during the time was Ricciardo, Hulkenberg. Ericsson came in as well. He had basically 3 wheels by that point due to the hit with Hartley. And they released Vettel into the path of Ericsson. Ericsson had to brake. Now, they didn't show this again on the world feed. I seen this on Twitter. And you could deem it as an unsafe release. However, 2 parts meant it didn't get picked up on. Number 1, the Monza pit lane has 2 lanes. So Vettel goes into the first lane, Ericsson was still in the second lane. He slightly went in the second lane, Vettel, but again, you can get away with it. Number 2, Sauber's a Ferrari B team like Haas. Of course they weren't going to protest it and make a big deal of it. So nothing happened. And number 3, I think as well, because it was under safety car, and the fact that Ericsson was on 3 wheels limping in, was probably another reason as well. So you might not have seen that in the world feed, but it did come up. Bit of issues there. Ted Kravitz mentioned it on Sky Sports F1 on the UK in the world feed for those who pick up the UK commentary, but nothing was seen after that. But the safety car was only out for a couple of laps, and it restarted, and Hamilton passed Raikkonen into turn 1. Got past in the slipstream. Raikkonen went straight out of Ascari and then realised, whoops, probably not a good idea. Too late, he had committed. He couldn't then slow down again. So Hamilton got a heck of a slingshot out of parabolic and was past, but Raikkonen just went, I'm having this, and just out towards the second chicane, through Curva Grande, round the outside, and that was that. And they two maintained station around about a second between them, pretty much for the whole of the first stint. But it was really, really good to see some actual on-track passing. So I hope the changes to the wing next season make even more of that. A bit further back, there was passing going on as well. Magnussen had to pit contact with Sergio Perez into the first Lesmo corner. Perez getting up the inside off the Dane, and then a bit of argy-bargy between the two of them, and the Dane came off second best in that one, and that would just completely ruin his race entirely, and he would finish last, unfortunately for him. And obviously we've seen quite a lot of back and forth and closeness, and Vettel managed to get past Ricciardo before passing Leclerc. That was on lap 9, so he passed the 2 of them in the same lap. Lap 10, Alonso was in out the race with a loss of power. It turned out it was an electrical issue. Gasly, though, decided not to make it easy for Ricciardo. Just because he's already guaranteed that seat, he still decided to make it tricky for the Aussie to get through for a number of laps before Ricciardo did finally manage to get past on lap 12. Took to lap 15 before Vettel was back into the top 10, getting past Lance Stroll. And then next lap, lap 9, up to P9 on the next lap, passing Perez. Got past, I can't even read one writing here. Sorry, got past Perez in lap 17, then ran wide, letting Perez get back past, then done it the next time round for P8. So sorry, I'm mixing my own words up here with my own writing. Lap 19, we've seen Bottas lock it up into turn 1. Verstappen locked up a little bit, seen him in the mirror, skipped over the first chicane. Nothing was done with that. It was a bit of a late lunge from the Finn. The stewards did nothing with Verstappen going over the chicane. It was seen as being a, we'll let you away with that one, because if Bottas hadn't been able to slow down, it could have been an accident, so that was fine. They let him away with that. And it was quite strange to see Bottas being unable to get past Verstappen, despite the fact that that Mercedes is clearly known to have a advantage in power, obviously. So that was definitely an interesting thing to see, that Bottas struggled getting past the young Dutchman. Vettel got up to P7 by lap 20, and then on lap 21 we started seeing pit stops. Now both Ferrari and Mercedes came out of the pits on lap 21, but it was Raikkonen that came in. Hamilton stayed out, so it was basically a case of do the opposite of whatever Raikkonen does to Hamilton. Raikkonen came in, so Hamilton stayed out. It was a quick pit stop. It was actually the fastest of the race, 2.23 seconds or something like that, I think, from the Scuderia team, so it was pretty well done from them. And Raikkonen was back out on the soft tyres. Now we expected to see Hamilton in next lap, but they came out into the pits and then went back in. The engineer race strategist changed the minds because they realised the pace that Hamilton was now able to set in clean air was quick and was not too bad, so they left him out actually a number of laps before calling him in. And then the other reason we thought maybe as well was that on a couple of laps later, both Raikkonen and Ocon radio feeds came through saying small spots of rain towards the back of the track where the two Lesmo corners are at the back end of the track, as we've seen Vettel getting past Ocon for P5, so he was now just behind the top four only at this point. So it was interesting. Was that why they were keeping Hamilton out? As it turned out, the rain never came, obviously, but it made for an interesting point. Lap 24, we also seen smoke pouring out the back of that Red Bull of Daniel Ricciardo, who'll probably just be praying for the end of the season now. C-spec Renault engine put in the car this weekend. It broke down on Friday practice first thing. It looked like it was another failure again. Renault tweeted out afterwards that it was a clutch issue. Whether that's them just trying to hide that or not, who knows, but another failure for Daniel. Maybe he's regretting going to Renault, I don't know, but we shall see. But he was out again on lap 24. And then on lap 27 we've seen his teammate pit. That released Bottas and Raikkonen and Vettel. And Bottas was kept on the radio told, keep Kimi behind you. They ran Bottas long purposely to try and hold up his fellow countrymen to help Lewis, knowing that he'd have really fresh tyres at the end to still come back at Verstappen. They had lured Kimi into a perfect trap, helped by the first lap incident of Vettel spinning. Kimi came out of the pits and went for it on those soft tyres. It didn't take too long till they looked blistered and pretty angry. Hamilton didn't pit until 29 laps in, so 8 laps later. And that gave Bottas the lead, and then eventually Raikkonen did obviously catch up to him. We've seen Vettel coming again on lap 30 because his tyres, the softs, were really angry. They looked really blistered and really poor for wear. And the softs just were not a good race tyre by the looks of it this weekend, which is quite strange, right? Yet the super softs weren't good enough to go a full race distance. And they were obviously the best tyre, so it was a tricky one to get right. But Raikkonen really pushed it to cut the gap down, and that's why when Hamilton then pitted on lap 29 and came out, he was further away from the Ferrari. He was about 4 or 5 seconds back, and that was because that Raikkonen had really strung that Ferrari out, really pushed those tyres, but it meant that later on the grip just wasn't there to defend off, and we'll come to that in just a second. Hamilton then obviously managed to close right up, and we basically had 1, 2, 3 all within a second of each other. We've seen Bottas finally drop into the pits in lap 37. 40 laps on the super softs roughly he did, because you got to remember that was the tyres he started the race on and on his qualifying on in Q2. So phenomenal effort as well to run that pace. He was even doing personal bests before he pitted, so brilliant tyre management from Bottas, and he played a fantastic team game He might not be a wingman, but he does play a really good team game, and did a very good job for the team today, as well as helping himself to some very good points as well. And then lap 43, he had managed to go pass. Bottas had actually caught back up to Verstappen really quickly as Hamilton and Raikkonen kept close to each other. Hamilton dropped back to save his tyres a little bit, keep the cool pressure and temperatures. Bottas tried to pass Verstappen into turn one, but Verstappen had managed to defend it very well, but then tried again the next lap, and Verstappen did not leave enough room. He didn't came across too much, hit Bottas. Bottas done very well to control the car, took it down the escape road. It wasn't quite a card's width, and Verstappen got a 5-second penalty for causing a collision. The team says he got a penalty, and he's like, "What for?" And he basically just threw a bit of a teenage temper strop. He says, "I know I'm losing time to Vettel, but I don't care right now. I'm just going to race as if I've not got it," basically. And yeah, he finished third on the road, but would be fifth in the timesheets. And then lap 45 was the decisive moment of the race. We seen Hamilton in the slipstream, in the DRS, down towards turn one. Raikkonen went to the inside, Hamilton to the outside. Hard on the brakes into turn one, but it was Hamilton that came through inside for turn two, and Raikkonen couldn't get the switch back, and Hamilton with the fresher tyres, looking a bit healthier, more grip, and he was away and through and into the lead, and the Tifosi were not happy. But that was a decisive moment, and again, what was good is that we actually seen passes for the decisive positions in the race on the track and not in the pits this time, so it was good to see regardless. Verstappen kept defending from Bottas, which I found funny. Raikkonen dropped back quite a bit. He was told towards the end to avoid the curbs due to a critical vibration. That left, was it the left rear? Yes, left rear tyre looked extremely bad as well. But as he came over the line, it was Lewis Hamilton taking an unexpected victory in Ferrari's backyard from Kimi Raikkonen, and Valtteri Bottas would be third. Verstappen took third on the road, as I say, but a 5-second penalty dropped him to fifth, so it was Bottas third, Vettel fourth, Verstappen fifth. Grosjean was sixth on the road, but I'll come to that because he would not finish there. He would be disqualified. So it was actually Ocon, Perez in 6 and 7. So another good haul of points for Force India. Great drive for Perez. Sainz would be a Stroll 9th, and Sergei Sorokin would finally get a point in 10th place. So we'll run through it all. Hamilton in first. Great race. Good tyre management. Kept it close to Raikkonen pretty much all race. Put in the laps where needed. Good passing move on Raikkonen, Vettel. Good passing on Raikkonen as well. Yeah, it was just a good race. He was quick throughout. He was quick where he needed to be. Kept the tyres right. It was just another really good race from the 4-time defending champion. I'm not a fan of Hamilton, as I say, but you cannot fault him. He's a very, very good driver. However, I wanted Kimi to win that race. He has not won since 2013 in Australia. However, it was his 100th podium. He was caught by the Mercedes team game, which they employed perfectly. Not helped, obviously, by losing his own teammate early doors as well. But he drove very, very well. Just pushed those tyres out of the pits a bit too soon. But another good result for him, and what could yet be, with the rumours again this weekend, his final season in F1. Bottas in third, couldn't get past Verstappen in the early stint, which I said was obviously quite surprising. Team ran him very long to help out Hamilton. Great defending from Raikkonen. It was a well-deserved podium for me, for Bottas, for his overall contribution to the race and helping the team and Hamilton. So he deserved that for me, so well done to him. Vettel in fourth, caught on lap one with a spin. As I say, racing incident, bit of understeer going in as well, but it was a great comeback to get to fourth. But this is just another race where something has happened with Sebastian. Thinking of Singapore last year, Germany this year. Things like that just seem to happen to Sebastian Vettel too much in comparison to, say, Lewis. And these are the kind of things that cost you championships. When he was in the Red Bull, it was impeccable reliability. It was the fastest car by a country mile. He didn't need to worry about it. He could drive it at 90% and still be miles ahead. In this car, he's got to drive it close to the limit. He's got another team in terms of Mercedes, and especially in Hamilton, that are close. And we're seeing small bits. And I'm not saying it's chinks in the armour, because he's a phenomenal driver. He's 4-time champion for a reason, even if the car was very good at that time. But he seems to be the one that gets caught in these situations more than Lewis. And this is just another example of exactly that. But it was a good comeback drive for him. Once again, he picked up points from where he could have been. Verstappen fifth, good race. Slightly misjudged the move on Bottas that got him the penalty. He must have thought he left him the cards with, but he just came over too far. You could see Bottas was actually 2 wheels over the white line and onto the small bit of green AstroTurf on the braking zone, so just a bit too much. Acted a bit spoiled, but you know what? I actually found it quite funny. He'd done a very good race. It was very good defending, so I hope that's good signs to come for Red Bull next season in terms of driving. Hopefully the Honda engine can be just as competitive in the back of that Red Bull as it can be for next year, but we shall see. Ocon, as I say, took 6th, best of the rest, good qualifying in 8th, so made up 2 places. Solid race, took it obviously 7th on the road, 6th after Grosjean's DQ. And good points once again. And obviously with things I'm about to come on to, it's a wee bit longer this week, but I'm really starting to worry for him for next season. He needs to be on the grid, and I'm starting to worry. You'll see why in a minute. I'll come on to that. His teammate Perez, 7th. I'm actually going to give him driver of the day. Apart from his wee hit with Magnussen, I'm going to give Perez my driver of the day. Reason being, he started 16th. He started towards the back, well, not 16th, sorry, but he'd been 14th after the Hulkenberg and Ricciardo, but either way, he started further back. Due to his poor qualifying, getting put out in Q1, he was quick, it was a good race, he was quite aggressive, but from starting all the way back there to get up to 7th, used the strategy well. They ran quite long, I think, in the first stint, and made it work. A fantastic effort. And Force India are now above Sauber in the constructors, and they're only 2 points behind Toro Rosso now with that. So phenomenal effort, and I think that was a great drive from Perez. Sainz was behind Dame in 8th place, 1 place down from where he started, so not what he wanted. He was P6 at one point as well. If I remember rightly, I think Renault have actually stopped the majority of their development, started looking at next season. So if that's the case, if I am right with that and what I've seen before, then that would make sense as to why they just seem to be dropping off the boil a little bit. But they just don't seem to be as quick as they did in the start of the season. They just seem to be falling away a little bit. So obviously Sainz's future's tied up. He's going to McLaren next season, so he knows where that's going on there at least. 9th place, Lance Stroll, more points, strong race from the Williams driver. First point scoring since Baku earlier on in the year, so they'll be happy with that. And it's the second year in a row. If his second visit, obviously Stroll's only been in for 2 years. Both times Stroll's been to Monza and the Williams, he's been in Q3. Remember, he started in the front row last year, up in, I think it was second or third last year, first or second row. So he does enjoy Monza, and back in Q3 started 10th, finished 9th. 10th in the road, Grosjean's DQ put him up to 9th. More points. Williams needed that, and I hope that they can keep trying to fight away towards that top 10 area as the season goes on, because the start of the season was horrific. I really do. I've got a soft spot for Williams, I do. So I hope that's a good sign of things to come. And as I say, because of Grosjean's DQ, Sergei Sorokin is no longer a pointless driver this season. He's got a point on the board, unless of course Haas get their appeal approved. But at the moment he has a point, and for me he deserves it. He's been quick, he's been on par with his teammate, and I'm going to apologise because at the start of the season I thought he was going to get absolutely destroyed. I thought he was going to be out of the team by this point, replaced by Robert Kubica. But he's not been. He's actually been pretty solid. The car's been terrible, but he's done pretty well with it. His teammate's got a yeary experience and he's qualified ahead of him in at least half of the races, if not just over. And he's finished ahead of him on quite a few occasions as well. So I'm glad to see he's got a point. He's probably not going to have a seat next year, unfortunately, but I think he deserves that point. Well done to him. So it's good to see. I hope he gets to keep that point. Charles Leclerc 11th. Both him and Ericsson, because of Ericsson's crash, they were a lot slower in a straight line. Then Sauber had to run an older rear wing, which wasn't the Monza spec, so they were slower down the straights than normal, meaning they were losing a lot of time to the other drivers due to the DRS issue. It meant that Leclerc was 5 seconds off Sorokin by the end, so he missed out on what was technically a point at the end by 5 seconds. Stoffel Van Dorn in 12th, collided with Hartley at the start, 10 seconds down on Leclerc in a compromised, obviously in that compromised rear wing Sauber. And I think it just shows exactly where McLaren are right now. You know, that the Sauber has got, albeit a strong Ferrari engine in, but an older rear wing that's not designed for the straight, soft Monza. And yet the McLaren is still 10 seconds down. And I think that just shows you exactly where they are. And obviously, the news has came out now that Stoffel Van Dorn is being replaced at McLaren for next year by F2 star Lando Norris. For 2019, and I think it's a shame because Stoffel is a good driver. He's got a brilliant junior record. He's an F2 champion, GP2 champion as it was at the time, and you don't just lose that speed overnight. You know, he's not had the greatest car. Yes, he's struggled against Fernando Alonso, but Fernando Alonso's a phenomenal talent. Most people would struggle in the same car against him unless they were a two-time champion. So it's a shame. I hope he finds a seat, but obviously, in the seats that are available in the market right now, I do wonder what's going to happen there. But that was the news that came out earlier today, was that Stoffel Van Dorn will not be a McLaren driver for 2019, being replaced by Lando Norris, McLaren junior and current F2 driver for 2019. Nico Hulkenberg was behind Van Dorn in 13th place. Yep, 13th. Couldn't do much starting from towards the back. Pitted after lap 1 with a safety car. Ran long, then had to pit towards the end. Tyres went off. Again, like signs of Renault have stopped development. I'm not surprised the car's fallen away, so wasn't much could do. Gasly got damage from a hit from Alonso, which we didn't see on screen, which hindered them. So couldn't do very much. Shame after his Q3 got into obviously getting into Q3 starting in 9th, so it was a shame for him. And Ericsson, same issue again as Leclerc with a rear wing, and obviously he had contact with Hartley at the start, and obviously came into the pits with only 3 wheels with a broken punctured tyre, so that put him towards the back and couldn't really make up much ground. And Kevin Magnussen was the last runner, hit by Perez, ruined his race just after the restart. Finished last. It caused him a lot of loss of downforce, and he just ran around at the back. It was hardly ever seen on the screen except when getting lapped. And then there was Grosjean, finished 6th in the road, had a good race, drove well to be honest, but the car was disqualified. I think both Haas cars were disqualified to be honest, but the reports have only discussed Grosjean's because he was in the points and Magnussen was last. The floor was deemed illegal. Now what's happened here is that Renault have put in an appeal to the stewards. Just around about Hungary time, the FIA put out a technical directive to the teams in regards to changes that have to be made before Monza. And it was in regards to legalities in regards to the flooring. And all the teams had to comply. And Haas says, okay, because they were obviously aware that they must have been one of the teams in question. We may have some issues doing that because of supply. And the FIA says, we understand you may have some issues with supply. However, there's another team and they're, got to deal with supply issues, but they've been able to get it done in time. If you run the car in its current state at Monza, you leave yourself open up to appeal. They obviously couldn't get it done in time. They ran the car as it was. Renault obviously noticed this. The race ran its course. Renault put the appeal in. The stewards looked at it. The car was deemed illegal because of this, and Grosjean, the team, was basically thrown out of the results, which is a shame because Grosjean's result had actually put Haas above Renault in the constructors before that. But I think that was Renault's plan even regardless of what happened, because it was something that had been known for a while. Haas are planning to appeal. They expect to have the fix in place for Singapore, but yeah, that's a bit of a shame for Grosjean. It was his 4th race in a row in the points as well after his terrible start to the season, but he did drive pretty well if we just look at his race performance as well. But yeah, no points for all of that effort. Ricciardo started at the back after the engine change. We thought it was an engine problem, but Reynolds said it was a clutch failure. Alonso had electrical issues, just kept coming and going through the first 10 laps of the race, and he pulled in. And Hartley didn't even make it through to turn 1, and I think his F1 career could be over pretty soon as well. But that was it, the Italian Grand Prix. A very interesting one indeed, and obviously with the news of Norris now confirmed, we now have 4 driver lineups in terms of Mercedes with Hamilton and Bottas, Renault with Hülkenberg and Ricciardo, McLaren with Sainz and Lando Norris, and Red Bull with Verstappen and Pierre Gasly. The only other driver we know confirmed at the moment obviously is Sebastian Vettel at Ferrari. Will it be Raikkonen or will it be Leclerc? Put your comments below. Who do you think it should be? Should Leclerc be in that Ferrari next season? Yes or no? I would love to see him in that Ferrari next season. However, as much as I know he will be at some point, and I'd love to see it next year, it could be a year too soon if I'm being logical about it. I think another year at Sauber, or maybe even a year at Haas, which unfortunately for Grosjean would be in place of him because I don't see them getting rid of K-Mag, would be a better option before throwing him in at the deep end for the Scuderia. But tell me what you think below, and who do you think will take the other seats, because the Force India seats are going to be, I think, the key to who goes where. I think it's clear that Lance Stroll will take one of them, and I think the rumour is that Sergio Perez is signed for the second already, but it's not confirmed, and that's where my worry is for Esteban Ocon, because the rumour was that he would go to McLaren, but now with Norris going there, where do you put Ocon? He's a Mercedes contracted driver, so I would expect Sauber and Haas would be off limits because they're Ferrari B teams. You wouldn't necessarily want to put him at Williams because that's quite a step back. No offence to Williams, but at the moment that is a step back. Toro Rosso is obviously Red Bull territory. There's talk of Daniel Kvyat going back there, by the way, which would be quite a turn up for the books. But supposedly that deal's been done, and within this market lineup, who knows? That wouldn't surprise me right now. But I've done my driver market video and it's all being blown to smithereens at the moment. So tell me, what do you think is going to happen at the moment? Put it in the comments below. Tell me what you think. But that is it for this week. I will be back in a couple of weeks' time for Singapore in 2 weeks. As always, if you have enjoyed this, it has been slightly extended because of how much went on. Do leave a like below. Comment anything about the race and all those bits I've just mentioned, and do subscribe as well. I have hit the 50 subscriber mark now, so thank you very much to everyone that's subscribed to me recently. Very much appreciate it. Onwards and upwards to the 100 mark now. If you haven't subscribed, do help me get towards that magical 100 mark. It would be absolutely awesome to do it before the year is out. But as always, my name is Andy. Until my next video, I'll see you again soon. Ta-ra.